Welcome to the Heartstrong podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Lindberg. Like many of you, I'm living a life that I just did not expect. And over the years, I've come to value the idea of living heartstrong, of growing through the challenges in my life, and let's face it, the challenges in our times. And I'm on a mission to help you do the same. So each week, I talk to thought leaders, authors, experts, and everyday amazing people who have something to teach us all about living fully amidst our struggles. I have learned so much from others along my journey, and so I hope that my guests will help you on yours. Let's get started. On today's podcast, I'm sitting down with Liz Pumala, who is truly one amazing woman, and we're going to talk about seeing unfulfilled needs and stepping in to make a change. Liv lives a life guided by observing and meeting unfulfilled needs around her. As a former adaptive physical education teacher for children and adults with special needs, Liz saw a need in the community early on in her career that needed to be changed. Life for her students continued long after their public education ended. However, the opportunities for them did not. So in 2020, she founded Matthias Academy, a nonprofit adult daycare for adults with specialized medical and behavioral needs, cognitive disabilities, and autism. And Matthias Academy has grown from 17 students to 72 students in 16 months, which is incredible. Liz is led by parents, guardians, staff, and students to continue to fill not only the void that exists in the lives of these underserved disabled adults, but to continue to create more and more amazing opportunities for them. And I am so excited to talk to Liz today. I think one of the themes of this podcast today that I want you to think about if you're listening is really, we all have things that we see in our world that we're like, gosh, I wish that was different, or I wish we could change that. Or you have a personal experience that really makes you look differently at the world, and you can change it. And Liz is here to tell you and to embody that you can change that. So welcome to the podcast, Liz.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, it's so exciting. So I came to one of your fundraisers for Matthias Academy even before your doors were opened. We were invited with some friends, and I never met you before. And I remember sitting in the crowd, like so inspired by your energy. I was like, this woman is going to change the world. Like I could just feel it in you. Like I didn't know you. I didn't. And also for the listeners, I have a son that's disabled. He's 7 and he has muscular dystrophy. So this cause was close to our hearts. Like we knew that someday we'd be thinking about these same issues. So that's why we ended up going. But you just struck me as a person that was just such a go-getter. So I want to know the story. Like, take me to the beginning. Tell me about your career and like how you realized something like a Matthias Academy needed to be created.
Well, I taught special ed for 17 years, and I think it was my first year teaching that we had 6 students graduating, and the school where I taught, it was medical needs, it was behavioral needs, it was all different, severe autism, and it was ages 3 to 22. And once they turned 22, they were done. They graduated, and we had a ceremony just like graduation. And when I heard that all 6 of them were going home, I was completely confused because I thought, we're getting these children and adults ready for their next chapter in their lives. And they were all 6 going home because one of them had behavior problems, one of them had medical issues. And I thought, well, that's not right. And so as I continued to teach and realized, only a certain amount of our students were able to find programs and really some good adult lives, I just decided I was going to change that, and I was going to have a place that was not only a place to go, but a place that was amazing and would create just so many opportunities for them.
So let's take it back one step for our listeners who may not know. So you have a child that's disabled or has special needs, and they're in school. And I can tell you as a parent, you go through all these IEP, which is individualized education plans. So you work so hard to get them to gain skills that are appropriate for school. And we do that, and we take them through, let's just say, a senior year in high school, or sometimes there's something that goes a little bit beyond that. And then there's nothing for them. Like we don't have anywhere. So when your kid is planning for college and planning to go to the next step, our kids are coming home to essentially sit on our couch. Is that what was happening?
That's exactly what was happening. So, they receive all of these services, speech services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, all of these, these amazing teachers that work so hard, and they're in constant communication with the parents, and the parents are working on the same types of things. And someone told me once that when they turn 21 in Wisconsin, 22 in Illinois, when they turn that age, it's like being pushed off a cliff. It's like, good
Wow.
luck, you're on your own, you have no support now. And that will forever, stay with me in terms of there's just nothing. And they go from all of these services and all of this support to nothing. So,
And also, like, what does that look like for families? Like for parents who are,
exactly.
have to work to support their families. Like what happens to the rest of the family?
So they either retire, they quit their jobs, they stay home. And that's the thing is, I don't want to spend my adult life hanging out with my parents in their house. I just don't. And maybe you
Mhm.
do, and maybe you don't. But I think there just needs to be the opportunity of something better. And if they want to spend their adult life hanging out with mom, that's awesome. But if they don't, there should be an option. And so these poor families are, they have to make the choice of who works, or do they hire an in-home caregiver to stay with them.
Mhm. So it's not only the young adult who doesn't get to pursue something else. The parents may have a job they really like, or they may have dreams too that then they have to, essentially give up. So the need is big. So when you thought about creating Matthias Academy, like tell me how you got started. Like what did that look like? Did you go home and tell your husband I have this crazy idea, or like what happened?
So if you're in special education, you want to start a day program. I'm just telling you that
Okay.
right now. Every teacher I've ever worked with, every paraprofessional, every therapist, you see that there is nothing and it
Mhm.
bothers you. And
Mhm.
so every person I've ever talked to, I'm going to start a day program. I'm going to start a day program. I'm going to, it's just across the board. Everybody wants to do that. And so I remember thinking it. My kids were little, and I remember getting closer and closer. And then at the time, my kids were, let's see, I guess 11 and 13. And I said to my husband, I really do want to do this. I want to start some sort of amazing place. I didn't know what it was going to be called at the time, but I will not do this until I tell a parent. And once I tell a parent of one of my students that I'm doing this, it has to be done.
Mhm.
So it was kind of one of those days. We were actually on a spring break trip. We were driving to Myrtle Beach, and I turned to him in the car and I said, "So I just told a parent." And he said,
Oh.
"Okay, well, maybe don't quit your job yet." I said, "I'm not going to quit my job yet," but I told a parent, so here we go. And he said, "Okay." And
Wow.
from then on, it was no looking back from there. So
From there. So you decided that you were going to do this, and then you started telling parents. So then you were like, I got to do it. So
yeah.
then what did you do? So what was next after that?
So it was a lot of researching. It was a lot of, I wanted to do it in Wisconsin. The funding for adults is so much better in Wisconsin because we're right on the state line of Wisconsin and Illinois. Um, and so I just started to research, okay, what needs to be done, what has to happen. And I knew I wanted to be a nonprofit. And so I started to develop my board, and we just kind of went through every single piece of each component. And
Mhm.
while I was still teaching, I taught for another year after that, working through this. um, and it was kind of amazing because the right people came to me. I
Mm.
would randomly be playing golf with some friends, and it turns out she's a marketing guru. And then
Mhm.
we became really good friends with this person who's just happens to be an attorney, and he wants to represent us. I mean, the things just kept kind of falling into place as we were going, and to be able to look back and see how this was led not by
Mhm.
me at all, that this was
Mhm.
led by so many others. And it's really, really cool to look back and see that.
Yeah. It's almost like you were being called to it, and
Yeah,
everybody was like lining up to help you. I don't know if you're like a person of faith or what you believe about
very
that, but
much.
it seems like this is, something that God had for you to do.
Absolutely. And so Matthias Academy is actually named after my brother who passed away from colon cancer. His middle name was Matthias. His name was Paul Matthias. And it means gift from God, which is what all of these adults are. And I think that's really important for everybody to know that they are all gifts, and that's why we're here. So, yeah.
So when you were in the midst of getting this going and meeting all of these people, did you have moments where you're like, I don't know if I can pull this off. I don't know if this is going to work.
I have to say it was really hard. This is a whole different world than, teaching. This whole business side is so different, and so just learning all these new things. But there was never a point that I didn't think I was going to do it. Like I said, I told a parent, and so it had to happen. There was no turning back, because I think there's been a lot of years of, well, I think somebody's going to start a day program. Well, I heard somebody's going to do this, and I wasn't going to do that. So there were definite hurdles. There was a definite pushback from, kind of the world around us of, we're just a dream, and, this is never going to happen. There's no way this girl can do this herself. But there was so much support from parents that I knew and parents that I didn't know. And they all jumped on board, and they helped fundraise, and they believed in this. And we just had a plan, and they helped push this through.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really was.
I think it's the power of parents. I've seen that in so many different things that I do. Because they have this experience, and then they love their kids, and then they're like, and then come hell or high water, they find a way. And I think that that's incredibly inspiring. Did the community around you, just even like the wider community, not just the community of parents, were they supportive of Matthias Academy?
Some schools were supportive. They were so excited to be able to say, hey, this is coming. And some schools were very much, this is not going to happen. This is a dream. People say this all the time, but it's not really going to happen, which was really sad, because I was hoping the schools would at least leave it up to the parents, and let them decide if they wanted to jump on board with us or not. So the fact that some of the school districts were, very opposed to supporting Matthias and sending out a brochure or anything like that, because we didn't exist yet, that was a little frustrating. But at the same time, I understand there's a lot of, empty promises at times. So, but some of the school districts were, and they were very excited, and, they told all of their parents, you got to do this. This is going to be great. And I didn't know them. They didn't know me. It was just something different and something new and something that was worth talking about. And it wasn't just, almost like a sheltered workshop where adults go and they have a job and they just do their job. It was something that was going to be endless opportunities. And that was really important. So,
yeah. So for those listeners who don't know, like, what you would do at Matthias Academy, like what your adults would do, tell us like what a day is like for them. Tell them they come, and what are they doing there?
So it's so much fun. They come from 8:30 to 3 o'clock every day. So it's kind of like a school day. And they are each divided into frat houses. So instead of like a homeroom, they each have their own frat house. So we just wanted to make it a little more college-like, because we really aren't a school. We are an adult daycare for adults. And our oldest adult here, I think, is 50. I think 50. Okay. So we really wanted it to be kind of that college feel, where they were really proud of the place they go to either work or go to school. So they have their frat house, and they check in with their professors, which is what we call our, I guess what the state would call them is caregivers, but we call them professors. And they check in, they talk about what they did last night, what their feelings are, how they're feeling today, things like that. And then they kind of just scatter, and everybody goes everywhere. So we have a music therapist here, we have an art teacher, we have a physical therapist, a speech therapist, a life skills, kitchen skills, things like that. So some of them go to art, while some of them go to music, while some of them are doing their morning physical activity, and then some are doing their check-in where they're learning something new. It's a constant motion, and all of the professors know where everybody is. And I don't know how they do, but they do. And, and then everybody kind of checks back in, and then they go to the next place, or then they stay there and they're going to work on some sort of a skill or something like that. So it's just a constant chaotic blessing is what it is, I guess.
It's like organized chaos.
Yes,
Sounds
exactly.
like.
Exactly.
So then after, do they take the bus home, or do the parents come get them? How does
So
that work?
most of them are driven by their parents, and we have some that come from. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but Elmhurst, Illinois. It's about an
Oh
hour
yeah.
and 10 minutes south. And then we have some from about an hour north, and then some from about an hour west. So we
Wow.
cover a big, big range. But that's how big this need is. I mean, that says right there to need to drive an hour or
Mhm.
more, to get your adult child somewhere awesome to go. That's how big
Mhm.
this need is. So their parents drop them off, or we have one little bus and we have one little van that picks up kind of local. That's just driven by the staff here, which is pretty
Mm.
fun. And then they come back and they pick them up at 3 o'clock and head back home. And we go all year round. It's not a school year. We keep going in the summer, but we do have a couple of days off here and there. But we run all year round.
Pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my questions is, how big is this need in the world? Like where is the next closest place like Matthias Academy to you?
Um, there's a place that has a residential component to it that is down in Libertyville. It's called Lamb's Farm. It's wonderful. And
Mhm.
there's also a place called Misericordia in Chicago, also residential with a day program. Wonderful
Mhm.
place. But the waiting lists, I mean, they're 10 years long, if not longer. And
Mhm.
that's not okay. That's
Mhm.
not okay. So one of my last years teaching, one of my students who had severe autism, as soon as he graduated, they were packing up and they were moving to Washington because Washington had the state of Washington, because they had the best pretty much options for adults with special needs. So they knew that's what they had to do to get him a place to flourish and to be the best he could be as an adult. So
Wow. I
yeah.
think one of the things that people or the average world doesn't realize is the impact that it has on the entire family and the siblings and the adult, the adult parents, and how in just an honest word, because I live it, it's disruptive and it's really difficult because as a parent you want to give all of your children what they need and you want them all to thrive. And so when you don't have that support, I mean, it's just even hard to find childcare for a child who has multiple needs, let alone, you worry about their future. And so, looking at this like a little bit more globally, have people said to you, would you open a second location? Have you thought about how to address this need on a larger scale, whether it's like policy advocacy or anything like that?
I think I think one of the things, and you kind of touched on it, is that the community doesn't understand that, if you think back to your high school and who you went to high school with and anybody that was in your high school with special needs, where are they now? Do
Yeah.
you know, like, they don't just disappear. And
Mhm.
we have all these fundraisers, we have all these, things for children with disabilities and children with autism.
Yeah.
And what happens when they're adults? And
Mhm.
it's not out there, and it's not. I feel like people just don't know that this is such a
Mhm.
huge problem. I can't even remember your question, so I have to go back.
Well, I was
But
just asking about, do people say to you, obviously this is a huge problem and you just have
yeah,
explained this to us. Would you open another location, or has this spurred any more energy for kind of addressing this on a larger scale within either the state of Wisconsin or Illinois or even like nationally?
yeah, we definitely will grow. I mean, we've grown so much in such a short time. I want to continue to add, you know, facilities. I want to continue to go. We're already diving down the residential route.
Mm,
We, but I don't want families to have to move to Wisconsin to
mm,
find some place great for their adult child. So,
mhm,
um, my honest hope, and right away when we opened, is we had other day programs come and tour. And I
Mm.
thought, well, this is perfect. They can step up their game. They can do better. They can do wonderful things for their adults. And
Mhm.
all that ended up happening was they sent me some resumes. They wanted to work here
Wow.
instead of let's make our place better.
Mhm.
So that is my hope. That is my hope that people can see what we're doing, why we're different, it's not just a place to go, it's a place for all of us as adults to learn and grow together. I mean, we're learning new things every day as adults all the time, and why not do it
Mhm.
together? But I will always grow as long as it's, safe and healthy for everybody around me. I think one of the biggest problems is the funding for this.
Mhm.
If you want to have exceptional staff, you need to pay exceptional staff. And that's one thing where we will always be fundraising. We will always
Mhm.
be, asking for support and things like that. But that's okay. That's what they deserve. They deserve the best staff possible. So I do understand now that I understand the business part of this, why there aren't more. This is not a money making. This is not
No.
um, but this is about caring for those that don't, no one else will, that no one else
Mhm.
will give them a chance just because they have a behavior or they have toileting needs or they have, medical needs. They still are humans and wonderful, wonderful people that deserve everything that we do. So I think it's just the knowledge, the getting the awareness out there that just because they turned 18, 21, 22, no, they don't disappear. They deserve the
Mhm.
same opportunities we have.
As everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not that long ago, I have 3 boys, and we took the older to skiing. And, we separate a lot as a family to do stuff because it's just hard to take our son Bodie places. And so we decided, okay, we're all going to go together. So we all went, and we get to the parking lot, and there's a plethora of handicap parking spots. We're like, this is great. So we pull in, we go inside, and, try to get my older one, with his, snowboarding and all this stuff organized. And so my husband goes with him. And then I realize that there's a whole bunch of stairs. Now I've been here before, but I've never been there with Bodie. So then I was like, okay, well, I have to figure out how to get him upstairs. So I ask a bunch of different people, nobody knows where the key is to the lift. It's like they've
Oh,
never used it.
right.
We get in the lift. Okay. So then I was thinking to myself, well, he's 7. So he's still not huge, so he's in a chair, but it's more like a stroller. And so I thought to myself, well, what if there was an adult in a wheelchair with cognitive impairment that had to hold the button the whole time? They may have not been able to do that.
Right.
How would somebody else, an adult, get in here with them? It's not big enough. So I, of course, so I get in there, I go upstairs. It's just a sea of people, and there's no real place to maneuver around. And I don't know, I've done this long enough to know that the stare from the mom, like, oh, I wonder what's wrong with that kid, so you're kind of
Mm.
there. So then I was like, okay, well, I have to feed him, but there's no place to sit down, and everyone's taking up the tables, and there was no reserved place, so I took him outside and fed him. And finally I was like, okay, we have to go in the car because it was too noisy for him. I think he was overstimulated. So my 10-year-old is with me, and we get Bodie to the car, and we're putting him in, and we're just going to hang out while they finish skiing. My 10-year-old says to me, he's like, Mom, you know, people with disabilities are kind of invisible to the world.
Mm.
People don't see them. And
Wow.
honestly, I had to choke back the tears because I
Yeah.
was like, here is my 10-year-old who has just observed everything that we've tried to do a quote unquote normal family thing together instead of separating, which we do most of the time. And he observed all the hoops that I had to get in to try to just integrate into a family event. And of course, I'm standing there looking at kids that are 7 skiing and wishing that I know he loves movement, he would love that. And it just really struck me that here we are in this place that did the absolute bare minimum that they would have had to do to be operable. They had a full parking lot available, but once you got inside, there was really nowhere for you to go. And just how unaware people are in general of people with disabilities, and yet how much they teach you. I mean, I've learned more about living through my kids who have had challenges than anywhere else. And I just wish that somehow the world at large, who is so busily moving about, right? I mean, it's like, could see, and I don't know what to do about that. I think it is having conversations like this, but they teach, I think my son has taught me presence and the gift that we all have of movement and all the things that we do, but then that he also wants those things. He's not devoid of wanting them because he cannot do that for himself. And so I just was wondering if you could talk to me and our listeners about how you see people that are disabled, like how you view them and how you would like the world to see them if they could see them through your eyes.
I think your story was, I mean, it's right on. They're invisible. And like you said, he's 7. He's not that large. Imagine if you have, I mean, we probably have, I don't know, 8 or 9 guys here that are over 6'3". I mean, they
Wow.
are large
Huge.
men.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what? If I have to change, a diaper, where is that happening? There is no,
Mhm.
it's on the floor. It's on, well,
Mhm.
it's not acceptable. And I,
Mhm.
I don't, there's so many battles I would love to fight, but I think
Yeah.
if I can just stick to this one and just, keep on this path and get us out into the community has been so welcoming to us.
Mhm.
And I think we are very, very present on Facebook. We show pictures pretty much every day of what we're doing. And I think that has opened some people's eyes of, hey, where were all these adults?
Yeah.
Where were they before Matthias Academy? And we've definitely been welcomed. We've definitely people are very accepting of us when we head into Costco and there's 20 of us and we're getting toilet paper and paper
Mhm.
towels. But the way that these adults are just teaching us how to live our lives
Mm.
with just laughter and love and talking through emotional times and things like that, we just slow down sometimes and we just talk through
Mhm.
things, and it's wonderful. And then there's times where we're all just learning together. Right now that each frat house is a different country, and they're learning about, they're kind of doing the Olympics. So each frat house is a
Mm.
country, and then they're traveling around, and like, I don't know anything about Norway. And now I know about Norway. I don't know anything about Madagascar except the movie. And
Yeah.
now it's like we can just all learn together about these different countries. So just to open our eyes and slow down and just continue to learn and grow together has been our mission and pretty much our love here. And I hope we spread that across everywhere, that people will just slow down and they will recognize and acknowledge and not see them as invisible, and see that they are here. They are here to make a difference, and they're here to do wonderful things and incredible things, really. And but I see what you're saying in this, in walking and rolling into a ski lodge with, I, it's heartbreaking. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is also sometimes as a parent, you have to put on your brave face, right? Because you
Mhm.
are trying to make something very normal that should be a normal experience for your kids. And I think it's just an awareness thing too. I mean, I have thought about calling the ski place, talking to the owner and being like,
Mhm.
listen, you have some work to do here,
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't do that, but I've done that in the past, and I'm not. I've been known to do those things because I think that it's when you have these significant experiences that it's not just for ourselves, but it's for. I think we have them so that we can impact the world for good. And so I'm curious, you had this idea, you saw a need, and you went after it, and you are doing it. And I know from doing things like this. I also run a nonprofit organization. You're always like, okay, well, we're good today. Somehow things just keep going.
Yeah.
Um, but what would be your message for someone else who sees a need in the world and feels called to make a change, but really actually has they have no idea to begin, or they're kind of afraid of giving it a go?
Oh gosh. I would say there's make it the right time for you. It's got to
Mm,
be. If I would have tried to do this when my kids were little, I don't think it would have worked. But it's got to be the right time. Something has to say to you or call to you saying, okay, it's got to happen now.
Mhm.
And I had no idea, no idea. And that's kind of my more personality is let's just do this. We'll figure it out as we go. And
Mhm.
what was beautiful was the people that are more planners and more this is how it needs to be done kind of filtered into my life and joined me in
Mhm.
this process to make sure that it was done correctly. And
Mhm.
but I would say, oh gosh, I would say let the others guide you.
Hmm.
Let yeah, let everyone around you that wants to support you, kind of lift you up and push you through all the hurdles and all the hard times and just keep going. I say jump in, but it's got to be the right time for you. I say once you feel like, okay, I can dedicate my whole life to this right now, go for it. Go
Mhm.
for it. Make a difference.
And you said, let people around you guide you. I think sometimes when we have an idea, it's like we feel like we're a one person show, right? That can feel like that because it's our idea. How did you know, welcome other people in, or how did you get people to kind of come alongside and share in your vision? Because it was your idea, it was you were the person that put your foot out and, and stepped in the game first, right? You're like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
How did you bring others along and then trust them to share in your same vision?
So I definitely this was a big problem for me. I wanted all control,
Mhm.
and in learning to, I developed a board and, we butted heads a few times, but I needed them. I
Mhm.
needed that side of the story. I needed that vision. I needed that, nope, can't do it that way. And then once we started and we opened, I had a very, very hard time giving up control. And
Mm.
this was a big problem, internally for me, that it was something I really needed to work on. And I actually worked with she's kind of like a team professional counselor that we have here to kind of keep everybody working towards professional goals. And I had to work through like, hey, this, as long as everybody knows the purpose and as long as everybody knows the mission behind Matthias, let him go.
Mm.
And since that, like, total control let go, it's been 100 times better, 100 times better.
Wow.
Letting everybody just do amazing, wonderful things. It's been incredible. So that was hard for me, really hard, because
Mhm.
this was my baby and I was not going to let this baby go. So, that's one thing that I learned over this past, I would say probably the last 6 months has been my real, let go
Mhm.
of control and let all these experts that I hired myself do
Mhm.
what they do best, and they really are.
It's kind of like, the what stays the same, like the what, but the how can change.
Yep,
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard because how you would do it may be different than how someone else would do it. Right. And so kind of
exactly.
allowing for that to happen is hard. It's hard I've struggled with that,
Yeah, and
but you're right.
to let everybody make mistakes and including myself, and then to learn and grow from them has just been incredible. Especially the fact that we're all doing it together. It's been great.
Yeah. And leading by that example, I think is really powerful too,
Yeah,
allowing people to be who they are. Cause I'm sure you have a lot of people there who are also equally mission driven. They wouldn't be able to do what they do, I don't think, without that.
definitely.
Yeah.
That's one of the main drives behind us is our mission of endless opportunities. And that, just as long as we end our day and we feel like, okay, I've provided them with every opportunity they could have had today,
Hmm.
that's a successful day.
Yeah. That's you're doing amazing things. It's really inspiring to watch. And you're in a helping profession, obviously, and you're caring for people with a lot of needs, and your staff is also like, how do you set boundaries for yourself? Or, maybe you don't, I don't know. And, how do you kind of have some for yourself? Because, you know, I I was talking to somebody recently where we were just talking about how when you're in a helping profession, it's kind of like a therapist is a therapist. You need to fill your own cup so that you can continue this mission, that's this beautiful mission that the world needs. So can you talk to me like what that looks like for you?
This was another very, very huge challenge for me. So,
Mhm.
for a solid year and a half, this was my entire life, first thing in the morning
Mhm.
to last thing before I went to bed. And my family has been so supportive of that. But at the same time, I didn't realize, my whole life was Matthias. And so one of the things that, and I think this is just because I don't know if it's because we're a business or a nonprofit. I'm not sure the rule, but the rule is that the director has to take 5 days off straight in a row
Mm.
and walk away so that everybody else can do their job to make sure that they
Mm.
could, their shoes can be
Mhm.
filled. And so last May was my first time I stepped away. My emails didn't come through, the phone, I couldn't answer the phone. And I did that for 5 days. And I went to Florida
Mm.
with my friend. And that was my realization of I have to balance this better. And
Mhm.
it was a wonderful time. We had a great time, and it was so relaxing. And I thought, I don't need to answer emails during my kids' sporting events. I don't need to do
Yeah.
that. So it can always wait. And so I've definitely really tried to put in, again, the last 6 months, put in, not on the weekends, as unless it's something that brings me joy. That's one thing that if,
Sure.
if it's a parent that wants to email me and say wonderful things, and that's great, I will absolutely answer that. But if it's
Mhm.
something that can wait till Monday morning, it'll wait. And I've really tried to I've really tried to put some boundaries in place in terms of myself to my staff. They don't want to talk about Matthias every day. They don't want me to text them at 6 in the morning about, what we're doing today. So I really had to put that, just calm it down a little bit, Liz. Not everybody wants to talk about this all the time. So I've definitely tried to put those in place as well, of just leave them alone, let them take their break. They have their healthy boundaries, and I'm learning to have mine. So it's a struggle, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, and I don't think there ever this whole idea of like work-life balance. I'm not sure that there is any of that,
Right,
especially when
right.
you're doing something that is mission driven, that is your purpose, right? To have that,
Exactly.
but to be aware of it. Um, because do you ever feel like there are just so many needs that it's just overwhelming that you just can't it's almost like it'll just bring you to your knees if you think about how many people have needs. And so how do you think about that too, as far as what you're able to do a defined amount of things because you're a human being, right? And you have
Yeah.
defined resources. Tell me how you kind of think about that too in your mind.
I definitely struggle with that. I get a lot of messages of, when are you going to be residential?
Mm.
When is residential starting? When are you going to open it? And at first my first reaction was just total anger of,
Mm.
we just started, give me a minute, and
Mhm.
it's not. And once I learned, they're asking for help, and that's it. They're
Mhm.
just asking for help. They're just asking for guidance. And it's not an, I'm not moving fast enough. It's not an insult to me, which I at first was taking so personally, of, we just opened a year ago, give me a second, and then we'll start the residential route. It's not that. It's that they just want to know. And it's
Mhm.
very much in my mind. And I think that's something that people don't know, is that I see the needs, I see the
Mhm.
transportation needs, I see the residential needs, I know them. I just have to
Mhm.
do this in the safest, best way possible. And it's going to take a little bit of time. But I mean, I thought this was going to take 5 years, and it only took a year and a half. So I definitely
Wow.
move quickly, but I also need to move with caution, and do things the right way. And I will definitely try to hit everyone's need in the whole
Mhm.
world, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think I have limited myself to Matthias. I definitely want to help, bring people to Matthias. And if it expands, that's fantastic. I would love to go that route. But again, I would want the right people in place to make it
Mhm.
happen the correct way, the right people, to carry out this mission, and if I don't have the right people in place and the right speed that it needs to go, it's not going to work. So,
It's not gonna work. Yeah. So I'm curious if you could, like, as you kind of thinking about all these things that you've accomplished so quickly. I mean, truly, I feel like you're at warp speed. It's amazing. What tool or piece of advice do you think has served you the best in becoming the person that you are that is able to create and lift this organization? Maybe it's a couple things, but can you think of some of those guiding principles in your life?
I think in the beginning, without, I never had that option of no. I never had that option of stopping. I think that was a big key point of we hit a lot of roadblocks. I mean, a lot. And we are kind of in this weird gray area where, things like the state, they don't know really where we fall. They don't know what to do with us. And yes, it could have been a roadblock, but okay, well then we're going to go this route, or we're going to change
Mhm.
direction, but we're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to keep going. I think that was a key part in the beginning. And I think now it's definitely more giving up control and
Mm,
letting those that love this as much as I do, let them go, let them be, let them do their thing, and trust, just give them all your trust. And I think those are my two biggest is, just keep going forward and trust everybody that you have with you.
trust that it's going to work out the way that it's meant
Yes.
to.
That was one thing too, I never doubted that we weren't going to make it happen. And I don't know why,
Mm,
because I have definitely seen, businesses start and fail.
mhm.
Um, but this was going to happen. And maybe it was because of the parents and the people around me and all the support that I had. I had so much support, so much support. It was unbelievable. And I think just, knowing these people and getting to know them, and hearing their stories, it was not an option,
Mm,
to not make this happen. So,
you had to do it. Yeah.
yeah.
So if you could talk to a parent who is raising a child with, a disability or a special need, the adults that you care for, like a parent like me, what is some advice? I learned so much from talking to other parents and just that are older than me, longer on this journey. Um, what are some things that you think make for healthy families that you've observed parents do well?
Oh,
What would you say?
I think doing their research, talking to other parents and relying on other parents. I think these support groups that like we have, we opened in the middle of COVID, so we really didn't have much of what I want to have is a big family, but
Mm,
we've kind of been limited with that. But we have, moms that walk on Tuesdays. They walk before they come. And
mm,
I shouldn't say just moms. Some of them are guardians, some of them are dads, um, and they walk the grounds together, and they are able to, bounce ideas off each other. And um, but I would say, I guess my advice to somebody with a special needs child would be, look to their future,
mm,
start now. It's never too early. Like, look at the programs in the area, and go visit them. And that's one thing that I think people just assume, that there's something there for their child, when everywhere they go, oh no, I'm sorry, we can't take, your son because he has a G tube, or oh, I'm
mm,
sorry, oh, he needs help in the bathroom, I'm sorry, we can't, accept him here. Things like that. I think, start your research now, and just make sure that you have, a great future planned. It's just like, it's looking at colleges, but it's looking at a very limited
mhm,
amount of colleges. And you might have to move, things like that. I don't know. But I think I totally got off subject here.
No, you're
I
fine.
think, I think, I think just leaning on other parents with special needs children, and just kind of sharing all knowledge and sharing all experiences, is just it makes everybody so much more knowledgeable, and so much
Mhm.
more. I mean, we have never ever advertised. We are all
Wow.
word of mouth. We are all parents telling other parents, and that's it. That's all. And we've grown, 4 times in the last, year. And that's all that you need, is just, parents that know
Mhm.
what's great for their child, and they're going to tell somebody else. So,
Mhm. And I think it's the power of aligning yourself with people that have common experiences as you. You could
yeah.
take this to anything that people experience in their life, is that you can learn so much. And that's really one of the reasons that I do this podcast, is because it's really about growing through the challenges in your life. And I have learned so much through the challenges in my life by watching other people, by listening to them, by reading their words, by modeling things that they've done that have helped me. And I think that there are so many people out there who are guides, who are willing to guide us all who are a few steps behind them with what's available. And so I think that you are offering that so much. And just in talking to you, I will say my husband and I often, we kind of think about Bodhi's future. It's very scary. It's kind of daunting, and we don't talk about it a lot because we joke it's going to be like three of us in a boat. You know what I mean? We kind of like we'll joke about it, but we don't, because it's very daunting. And I think what you're doing for people is you're taking something that is really a bit scary and a bit daunting, and you're creating space for it, and you're allowing them to talk about it and even plan for it. And so I think that that's incredible. As we start to wrap up, I know what you're running is an expensive thing. I can imagine. And you want quality people. That's really, so I'm curious if you can tell us, like, first of all, how are you funding this? And second of all, how can people support you?
So the state of Wisconsin is wonderful in terms of funding for their adults with special needs, and they fund their adults based on who they are, which I think is very important. As opposed to Illinois, you get a set amount of money and good luck, and I hope that's enough for what you need it for. And it's not, it never is. But where Wisconsin looks at the actual individual, how much, what needs do they have? How much staff do they need with them? Things like that. And they fund their care based on that, which I think is incredible. Now, we have both Illinois adults and Wisconsin. So the Illinois adults are private pay from either the parents, the guardians. They have some funding from the state of Illinois. And then it's all donations. So we do a lot of, we have our Amazon wish list. So each frat house, has their Amazon wish list of any needs that they have. And we just have that on our website. And then we have fundraisers. We haven't since COVID. We've only had a golf outing, but we did a couple online things. But otherwise, it's just going to be fundraisers. It's going to be word of mouth and donations. And it's so far we're doing okay, and we're able to to stay afloat. But in terms of growing, we can't grow until we are more established, and we can really go after those large donations, corporate donations, things like that. We're in our first year of our first audit, so then they kind of look at newer nonprofits after a couple of years of audited financial statements. So we're on our way, but that's our big, we're always going to be asking for money. We're always going to be, just because we want, if Daniel needs something that's going to make his artwork, make it easier for him to paint, because he does have limited movement. We're going to buy that special thing that's going to help his range of motion so that he can paint just like everybody else. So that does make us different, as we do individually look at each adult and what they need.
That's amazing. So tell us, it's MatthiasAcademy.org. Is that where people can find you?
Yes. Yep. Okay. And it's 2 T's.
2 T's. And if you're listening and you are inspired by Liz and you have the means, please reach out to her, because your support would really mean a lot. So I just want to thank you, Liz, for your time. You're doing incredible work. Like, it's unbelievable. I was thinking about this today before we recorded this, how recently, especially through COVID, I've heard people comment on things that they don't like, like something going on in their kids' school, or, you name it, there's something going on. And while we live in a world saturated by opinions on social media and everybody, you think there are so many people who have really good ideas, who have something that they really believe in, that they're afraid to speak up and take action. And, you aren't and I'm not. And I think sometimes when you have an experience in your life where you have to speak up or else no one will even see you, you learn that. But I really hope that people listening will take that to heart and say, if there's something that you're called to, that you feel that you are created for, like, just listen to that, right? And take that step and see what could happen, see who comes in your path, because that is how you change the world for somebody.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you.
We had great feedback because we did open in the middle of the pandemic, and they said we got some feedback that we were the only bright light in the world at the time of
Mm,
all of this hardship. So that was a wonderful thing that we were growing and flourishing in the midst of
in the
this
midst of the pandemic,
shutdown. Yeah.
and that you've kept it open, and that you've been
Yeah.
able to do that is amazing.
Yeah.
It's
It's been
amazing.
wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This is really
Yeah,
fun.
it was really fun. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you
I
so
wish you a
much.
lot of success.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining me here on the Heartstrong podcast. Please rate and review this podcast and share an episode that you love with a friend. And when you do, it helps us continue our mission of encouraging people to grow through the challenges in their lives. This podcast is brought to you by the Ethan Lindbergh Foundation and the Heartstrong Collective. To learn more about our work, please visit theheartstrong.com. We'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Heartstrong podcast.